We've all heard the story, right? The crucifixion happened on a Friday. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if a simple tradition has been covering up a much more fascinating truth hidden in the scriptures? We're going to dig into a theory that says the real day was Wednesday, and you'll see how it solves a 2,000-year-old puzzle. And look, this isn't just about splitting hairs over a calendar date. We're talking about a tradition that's almost 2,000 years old. So the big question is, could Good Friday actually be a miscalculation? To even begin to answer that, we've got to do something kind of radical. We have to set aside all the tradition we've been taught and go straight to the source, to the words of Jesus himself. Okay, so here it is, the absolute core of this entire mystery. It comes directly from Jesus. He made a super specific prophecy about how long he'd be in the tomb: 3 days and 3 nights. Now, that's not a suggestion, right? That's a hard requirement. So the question becomes, does the whole Good Friday timeline even fit that? And right there, that's what we call the 3-day puzzle. You've got this ancient tradition on one side and this crystal clear prophecy from the scriptures on the other. And as you're about to see, they just don't line up. All right, let's just do the math on the traditional timeline. If the crucifixion is Friday afternoon and the resurrection is Sunday morning, well, you get part of Friday, all of Saturday, and a little bit of Sunday. That's what, maybe a day and a half? And only 2 nights, Friday night and Saturday night. That is nowhere near 3 days and 3 nights. It just doesn't work. Something is clearly missing from this picture. So where do we find the missing piece? Well, the key to unlocking this whole thing has actually been hiding in plain sight this whole time. It's a detail that most people just read right over. Get this. There wasn't just one Sabbath that week. There were 2. Okay, check this out. This is our first major clue, and it comes straight from the Gospel of John. The text is so specific here. It doesn't just say it was the Sabbath. It says that Sabbath day was an high day. Now that phrase, high day, that's not just fluff. It's a technical term, and it has a very precise meaning. So what in the world is a high Sabbath? Think of it like this. It's a special ceremonial Sabbath that's tied to one of the big Jewish feasts, in this case, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And here's the absolute game changer. Unlike the regular weekly Sabbath, which is always on a Saturday, a high Sabbath can land on any day of the week. And believe me, that one little detail, it changes absolutely everything. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. When you start pulling together the clues from the different Gospels, a brand new timeline starts to emerge. So John tells us about that high Sabbath right after the crucifixion. Then Mark says the women bought their spices after a Sabbath had passed. And then Luke adds that after they prepared those spices, they rested again on the Sabbath according to the commandment. That's the normal weekly one. Do you see it? They bought and prepared spices, which means there had to be a normal workday stuck right in between 2 different Sabbaths. Okay, so once you see the evidence for 2 separate Sabbaths, the whole Good Friday timeline it completely falls apart. And a new, much more logical timeline emerges to take its place. Let's lay it all out. All right, just follow along here. This new timeline fits every single piece of the puzzle. The crucifixion happens on a Wednesday, before sunset. That means Thursday is the high Sabbath, the first day of unleavened bread. So the women rest. Then comes Friday, now a regular work day. This is their chance to go buy and prepare the spices, exactly like Mark and Luke told us. After that, Saturday rolls around, which is the normal weekly Sabbath. So they rest again. And then finally, on Sunday morning, they go to the tomb and find it empty. Okay, so this new timeline is amazing, right? It lines up all the clues from the Gospels perfectly. But let's not forget the original problem. Does it solve our big puzzle? Does a Wednesday crucifixion actually satisfy that prophecy of 3 days and 3 nights? Come on, let's count it out. Let's start with the nights. He's buried before sunset on Wednesday. So we have Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night. Boom! Exactly 3 nights. And what about the days? Well, he was in the tomb for the entire day of Thursday, the entire day of Friday, and the entire day of Saturday. That's 3 full days, 3 days, and 3 nights. The prophecy is fulfilled, not symbolically, but literally, perfectly. And that's really the main takeaway from all this. The Wednesday timeline doesn't ask you to twist words or look for some hidden symbolic meaning. All you have to do is recognize the 2 separate Sabbaths that the Gospels themselves talk about, and the whole contradiction just vanishes. It's a timeline that comes from simply reading the text for what it says. So that just leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If a simple, direct reading of the text can bring this much clarity to something as huge as the crucifixion timeline, it kind of makes you wonder, right? What other traditions that we've held for centuries might look completely different if we just went back and took a fresh look at the original texts?